Hello and welcome to Area Control Bros episode 22, where we talk
Episode
about
22.
yeah, where we talk about out of print area control games.
I had to stop myself from singing that song that that T Swift writes about that age.
I've somehow gone through my life without ever having heard a Taylor Swift song knowingly.
Oh,
Like
really?
like if you asked me like what a Swift song sounds like, I wouldn't be able to tell you or
Right.
like I just
Like,
it
but like if I showed you a bunch of them, you would maybe eventually like, oh yeah, I guess I've heard that. You just
Yeah,
don't
if
know.
I'd heard one, it would be like in a mall or like an airport. Like
Right.
maybe like there would be one I've heard, but I've never like actually I
Right.
so I don't have any opinion about Taylor Swift. But anyway,
Yeah.
more importantly, Clockwork
Don't come
Wars.
after me.
Yeah, it's just no, I just don't know. It's the Schrodinger's musical artist.
She's all
Anyway,
right.
Clockwork Wars. Weight 3.13, rating 7.5 on the Geek. Hassan Lopez is the designer. This is I believe he's designed two games. Um, Clockwork Wars in 2015 and Maniacal in 2019, which I have not played, but it would be interesting to check that out at some point. Um, but I'd say this is relatively indie. Publisher Eagle Griffin, mostly known for publishing kind of like war games and area control games. Uh, for I guess more technically 4X games. But they also have some lighter stuff. But overall, I guess my point is they're definitely like a smaller publisher. Um, this game also is kind of you can definitely tell that it's a more indie production than playing like like a CMON game
Right.
or what
Right.
have you in terms of the kind of the build quality and the art and the miniatures. Fortunately, not a big deal. Not something that's really that important for
Yeah.
the gameplay in this one.
It's not bad by any means in
No,
terms
no,
of the
no.
look of the game or the quality. But there is what I notice is that the look of the game feels sort of inconsistent across different pieces, where like the actual tiles feel like they're from a bit of a different game than some of the, cards that you see, for example. That sort of thing where it's like, is this a consistent vision all throughout? Has this been planned all the way through type of deal?
The
Yeah, the
ti
art direction's a little muddled.
the tiles actually look like an old RTS from like the 90s or early 2000s. It kind of looks like a map of like Total Annihilation
Mm,
or like Command and Conquer. That's sort of like early 2D, 3D hybrid type stuff,
right.
old isometric PC game look. It looks like they ripped some sprites from that, and that's what the hexes look like. At least on the art side, you can also have them flipped onto the side where it just has the kind of colorblind friendly icon of what kind of tile it is.
Right.
But and then the art on the cards is mostly like, steampunky type stuff, but overall, I'd say like I didn't bring up the fact that it's indie to like hate on the art. I think the art is fine.
Yeah,
Um,
it really, really is. And it works and no problems.
but this game is kind of like diplomacy plus plus plus. You have the core of diplomacy, which is writing down orders and resolving them simultaneously. But whereas diplomacy, that's kind of the whole game. In a nutshell, this game it has a bunch of other things tacked onto that. But that's still the core of it, is this deployment, the simultaneous hidden deployment phase. This
I
game,
I
oh,
actually
sorry,
think
go
it's
ahead.
important to say it's not like actually simultaneous. The turn order does really matter here.
Hmm.
Um, it's simultaneous that you are writing down your hidden orders, but then you go in turn order to resolve them, and that resolution order can really, really matter. And that's actually
Yes.
one of the things that I think is most interesting about this game is like if I am last in the turn order, I might write my orders a little bit differently than if I was first because I'm trying to like plan for multiple things that could be done during my opponent's, resolution phase. And to me, that bit is actually quite fascinating.
It is interesting, especially because the rule book says that if you wanted to, you may do it simultaneously, but they recommend doing it in player order. So it's actually a
Oh,
little bit,
really? I didn't know that.
yeah,
That's
it's
funny.
something I read and I was like, well, it's probably better to do it in player order because then you do have the ability to have some reactivity. But it is funny that the rule book is actually kind of murky on, like just do whatever you want, do either
Right.
one. But I think the in player order makes the game feel a little bit tighter. Means that the player order does matter somewhat. I think that's fine, especially because this game isn't like Battle for Rakugan, where like the whole point of the game is the chaos. And
Right.
like with this game, it's a little bit longer, it's a little bit heavier, and you probably care about the results a little bit more than in Rakugan. And so the ability to sort of have a small amount of reactivity
Right.
in kind of the minutia of the orders, and then later
And I think
reinforcements is good.
importantly, when you write your order, the move option of a troop is written in the same way as the deploy option of a troop. And so I was finding myself in our most recent play often having, two or maybe even three troops when I was finally up to where I was getting 8 guys a turn, where I didn't know if I was deploying them or moving them from a related area. And it really was going to depend on what I saw you guys do, of whether I wanted to keep people defending a spot or allow them to move out and then have, more of an opportunity to deploy elsewhere and not be moving around my units, right?
Yeah. No, that brings up an interesting question to like, could you try to write a sequence of orders in which like you can like engineer like a circumstance to where one of them could be invalid? I don't think you can. Like, I think you have to have the dudes at least most of the time to be able to end up in the places.
I don't think the movement is complicated enough that it's possible to make an illegal order, but maybe we just aren't trying hard enough.
Mm, right.
Um, because like the only real like twist is the ability to do a force march, and you check for whether or not the space is empty at the beginning of deployment, regardless of player turn order. And I think that should always be okay. Like I can't think of a time where that wouldn't be.
Maybe there's some action card that could do it, but yeah.
There might be some weird combination of things because this game does have with the technologies and sometimes the Spy Master cards, or I think they're called.
Yeah.
There is some funky stuff that can happen for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
But
game also
okay,
has that sort of like strategy card picking. That's the Spy Master phases. You got like these little powers that you can get. Reminds me actually maybe most of perhaps what is it? The ones with the Irish. What game I think ago? The ones
Tammany
with the
Hall.
Irish. Yeah, Tammany Hall. Like Tammany Hall has a little bit of that where it's got these like, like you're the cop or the person who can like lock stuff down. They're not quite as powerful as those, but it's somewhere in between that and like strategy cards from TI where you just get like a little boost. I think most of them are pretty like you just get the thing. Like, oh, I get to pick tech first. That's my benefit.
Yeah, no, it's not a huge con for me, but I will mention while we're on this topic, I kind of like to see some of the Spy Master tiles get like buffed or like changed maybe.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
a few of them that I don't
I
really
don't
see getting picked.
I don't love Gambit.
Yeah.
For instance, I don't love Gambit, but I think because I do think that sometimes it feels like when you're, especially if you're last in turn order, similar to TI, where like, it comes around to you and it's like, well, guess I'll take this because like I'm not going to be able to use Imperial this turn or whatever. Early in the game especially. And in this game, it is kind of a similar thing where it's kind of like it comes around to you if you're last in turn order, all the good stuff's already taken, and you're kind of just taking the best of what's left. And
Right.
there's nothing wrong with that inherently, but I would like to see maybe, if this game ever got a second edition, which is close to zero likelihood, that would be changed a little bit. I know that there are like some other tiles that came in some sort of print and play expansion or something. So maybe if I swap
Mm,
those in, that would be like some sort of rebalance.
maybe.
But maybe next time we'll check that out. But
I think
yeah.
that's an interesting point though, because I was feeling that even in a three-player, play of the game. And the first thought I had, and when you said that was, I wonder what people have rated this in terms of like what is the best player count on Board Game Geek. And interestingly, at three player, they've said 7.1% of people that voted is three player good or not. Only one of them, right, said that it was best at three player. And then 78.6 said, yeah, it's fine. Most people said it's best at four player. And I'm like, I'm already on some turns feeling like, oh man, I've got this shit choice at this part of the Spy
Well,
Master
if
version,
4
whatever.
plus an additional copy of Conscription is added, like
Okay.
Conscription 2, so there'll be two people that can get the bonus Conscription. Um, but yeah, I mean, like in 4 or 5, certainly 5 player, I think. So at 4 player, you'd have the additional Conscription, which doesn't ever really feel that bad. It's, you can always make use of an extra guy.
Right.
Um, but at 5, you probably are in the same position you were at 3. And so I think maybe at 3 and 5, you'd want to mix up which ones you're adding, like from that other
Right.
extra pool of Spy Master tiles. Because let me look at it. I think it's Gambit I don't love. I don't love oh, now they look at it. I mean, maybe it is just Gambit that I think is a little bit underpowered. There are turns where like I don't really care about Technophilia. I guess it does just give you a VP straight up, and this is a low victory point game. Um, like the final winning score last game was 20, and that might have even been like a relatively high score.
Yeah,
Uh,
I thought you did pretty well there. I mean,
and
quite a
so
boost at the end.
I can definitely see a game where like you win with 15 or something. So one victory point isn't nothing, that's for sure. Uh, but maybe it'd be better if you had had tack ups that turn to be able to get more VP if you're winning combats and the resource locations.
Yeah.
Hard to say.
It is hard to say, and I kind of hate that because I don't want to like forego being able to do a cool thing to just get a VP.
That's not,
And
that's what I mean. Yeah, it
yeah,
doesn't feel great. It's like, I'll just get a VP generically, and I kind of want to do the thing that's like more exciting.
right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I had quite a bit of fun trying to get my like what ended up being like a secret objective to work. Like I had a card that was like score 2 VP for every combat you won this phase. And there were a couple turns where I should have just played it and been satisfied with winning 2 combats, but I kept trying to go for like some big play with it, which was kind of my downfall. But that does bring up another thing, which is like there's a lot of ways to gain VP in the game that feel maybe like a little bit arbitrary, I guess. Like like there's not really like a consistent engine that you can build. Like maybe there's like some text you can go for it. There's also a good amount of ways to cause other people to lose VP in the game.
This game
Which,
definitely
yeah.
has no shortage of take that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
I thought you
sure.
put it well while we were packing up the game, Ben, of, you know, it feels a lot worse to lose points than it does to win points. This game really helps you understand that at times,
Yeah.
where it's like, you're taking another point from me, like kicking me while I'm down,
It's like,
like
why'd I
there
even
is a
take
little bit.
technophilia if you're gonna take that point away from me? I
Right, right.
wasted my time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
there's a little bit of that.
when you're the guy with the finger of doom technology, the decision is almost arbitrary. It's like, I guess I'll just choose this spot. And then the person who's receiving the finger of doom is like, no.
Oh,
Yeah. I was talking a little
keep
bit
getting
with
fingered.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking a little bit with Blake about it, and it's like I think that you don't see a lot of games where you directly cause people to lose victory points. And I think that's for a reason. Most of the time, it's like you will see like the way that happens is like in Rune Wars with like a rune on the board where it's like I am taking your territory, you are
Right.
losing a VP and I am gaining a VP. Or like you are disrupting their victory point engine. And those are typically the ways that you interact with trying to stop somebody's like win in a board game. It it feels a little weird in this game where it's just like literally like, yep, I'm taking you down a peg as
Right.
well. And like a lot of the times you're not really like I didn't really feel like there was a time in which it was like I need to like mess up the leader, you know? Like I really need to mess up whoever's in front right now.
I
It
was
just
feeling
kind
like
of
that all the time.
I don't know, you
I mean, but the thing was, I was always trying to disrupt you guys, but then again, I was playing the faction that is proficient at disrupting,
Mm,
and
yeah.
so like
right.
that, I kind of leaned into that more.
Yeah, mine was more just like defendy, and then Blake's was kind of like just gather a bunch of
Get
science.
science.
Get
Now I
sense.
will say I would tend to agree with Will that I did feel like I needed to disrupt the leader, but I didn't feel like I necessarily had the ability to do that at all times because the mobility in this game isn't like all that crazy. You know, you can do the force march, get up two spaces, but um, I don't know. I mean, you're usually also having to worry about other territories. We had just on the final turn of this game, um, like one super mega tile battle where, I had 10 unit strength committed. Ben had 9 unit strength committed. Will had, I think, 6 or 7 unit strength committed. Every other battle was, I think 4 or less unit strength. There might have been one or two where one side had five and the other side had like one or two, that sort of deal. Um, but generally rather small combats because you're kind of fighting on multiple fronts. And so as a result, even though you have this force march and you can try to get into enemy turf, um, I don't know. I don't think you can truly like full commit to that sort of thing because if you're losing a village or one of your cities, and your worker generation goes down, I think you're really going to fall behind in this game. Um, Same thing with if you start losing your ability to generate your different your science, your religion, and your the
Sorcery.
sorcery. Yeah, I think that you want, and you might forego one or even two of them, but at some level, there's going to be a space that's very important to you in terms of IP generation. And yeah, I think there's an amount of like I have to defend my own turf before I can really worry about going and trying to disrupt the leader here.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with your assessment. I think it was more like a lack of ability. And like I think the one card that I got that could cause people to lose VP hurt Blake more than it hurt Will after he was in front. You know what I mean? It was like you both lost VP equal to the amount of like shrines that you had. And it was kind
Mm,
of just like I don't really have control over who has more shrines. This is
right.
just like I'm also playing this for like I think it had like a different benefit on it. Or I might have just been playing it because it was like, well, it hurts you guys, so I guess
Right, like I
like
got the card, I've
yeah,
used my Spy Master phase to get, a choice of one of two cards, and now I'm going to use it. It doesn't really matter.
right. It did feel a little bit like crabs in a pot to me, where you're all just kind of trying to like climb over each other to get out. But like for the most part, you're just like
Yeah.
losing a lot of stuff. Like there is the pollution thing that happens where like all of the VP zones get culled when they score, all down to like one dude.
Hmm.
So you
That's
are kind
true.
of incentivized to like commit the minimum amount possible in order to win and still be able to score those areas.
I think I like that mechanic though, because it means that not only are those territories vulnerable to turn after a scoring round, but also you're going to have to think about during deployment, like, how do I deploy to this lake and still have two guys left if I get attacked? And conversely, people
Right.
trying to show up there, like, well, I don't need to win. I just need to reduce him to one guy
Right.
so that
There's
he
some
can't.
interesting decision making there.
I think
Yeah, I do
that's,
like that. I'm not saying I don't like it.
yeah. But overall, it is definitely a crabs in a bucket game. I agree. We're crabbing out in this one.
Yeah.
That said, the bucket is, the water is not uncomfortable in the bucket.
Okay. Below boiling the water.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree. I think it's a nice steam bath that we've got going here. You
yeah.
know?
I think that the fundamental thing to talk about regarding this game, in order to have a good time, is the kind of core fundamental need to curate the tech market and how much that impacts the game. The
Right.
technologies in this game are incredibly powerful. These are like, this might be the most powerful tech tree in any board game I've ever played. Like,
And highly variable as well, you
yeah,
know?
like the techs are huge and fighting over them, being able to like make sure that you get one or deliberately disrupting someone's ability to purchase one on a certain turn. This is really a big part of the game, and because of how important these techs are, and like I won on the back of basically having two sorcery techs, one of which I was able to steal at a crucial moment. But the um the big thing is that you really, really need to not select the text randomly as the rulebook tells you to do.
Right.
I think you as a group need to like set out all the texts in the game because there are only 9 texts in the game. There's one for each technology type for the early age, one for each in the middle age, and one for each in the late age. But you've got a stack of a bunch of different texts that you could be using for that from the box. And there's some like the observatory, which just removes almost half of the text from the game, regardless of whether they've been purchased. And it
Right.
feels like this just feels like it's not fun
Yeah.
for anybody. Like the
I think
person,
it was almost good that we seen that one because I don't know if we would have decided to curate text last game if not for having seen that, where it's like, wait, like I'm gonna have to plan my whole like 2/3 of the game around the fact that someone's going to eventually get this tech and nullify part of my strategy. Like that's bull crap, you know?
yeah, it does. There's just no reason, and I don't think there's any reason. There's no reason to defend it, and I don't think there's like an argument to defend how kind of anti-fun some of the texts are.
Right.
And I think that it's important to have texts that are like at a sufficient power level that to motivate you to like make plays to be able to purchase them, but not so powerful or so specifically like kind of anti-fun that they're just going to ruin the game if anybody buys them. And
Yeah.
there's a
I,
sweet spot there.
I think one of the techs that we didn't play with, but it's like a sorcery level 3 tech, just lets you start like blowing up tiles like every
Cataclysm.
phase. Yeah, like you just get the like if you save up all your sorcery points for to like buy that in the first round of age 3, you're just gonna start like deleting tiles from the game.
Right.
Um, which is pretty like nuts. Uh, but it's like
It's nuts, but it's also like imagine being on the other end of that, you know? Like,
right.
that
Yeah,
sucks.
it's like Muat in TI, like their hero ability, which they get to do like one time throughout the game. But it's like, yeah, I'm gonna do that like 3 times on the most important like like scoring parts as
Yeah, you
well.
can just
Like,
pick wherever. You don't need to like have a fleet next to it or whatever.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
you just are. It's just an orbital bombardment, basically. It's just like, okay, this tile is just removed from the game. It's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
thanks.
yeah,
From half court, he shoots, he
Yeah,
scores, you know?
yeah, you three-pointer just anything, and just
Yeah.
it's totally gone. And that's like that's not just a loss of what is probably going to be a scoring tile, but it's also a loss of troops. And this is a game where the generation of your basic soldiers slash workers slash spies, which is it's all the same little round disk component. That's kind of at the core of the game. If somebody is like way ahead of everybody else on just making more dudes, that's a big deal. And
Yeah.
blowing up six of the five dudes on some tile for free after getting a tech, that's a huge swing.
you could blow up somebody's city and disrupt their ability to produce more dudes. Like
Yeah,
you could
Right.
yeah, I
kill a
mean,
Yeah,
bunch
yeah.
of dudes in a city and then also prevent them from making more. Yeah, like
Absolutely.
but anyway, I do think it's important to think about that at the beginning of the game and sort of look at the tech market and be like, are we happy with this being the tech market? You know, like, are there
Yeah.
any techs that you don't think that you think suck? Are there any that you think are just going to be way too swingy? If yes, then don't be ashamed to be like, okay, let's just get some other techs from the box and just let's just find something that's going to work for this game. And it does feel weird to say that because I think part of this game is like some of the replayability is coming from the variable tech markets. But I just don't think that some techs are going to lead to a play of this game that's going to feel good. And I think
Right.
that's important to talk about with your play group.
right. And
I would agree.
I would almost rather them have spent more time just like curating like a couple of good texts because I think there's like five for each slot. I think there's like a total of like maybe
It's
45.
it's 5 or 6. Yeah, I forget which.
Yeah. I think there's like 45 texts, like throughout, like five for each of the nine slots. And I
Mhm.
think you could have easily brought that number down to three. Like I think there are some that are just like pretty unfun that you could just be like, okay, we'll just get rid of this. I think it would be enough variety. Or like just I don't know, like think more about about what's going on there. I don't know if the thing like even the Finger of Doom, which was like pretty good, it felt like it didn't need to also cause whoever you're fingering to lose a VP. Like there's some stuff there that really
Right.
like feels like a little bit of a sharp edge to me. It's like I don't know, like killing a one dude somewhere doesn't sound like a big deal, but that could be like you're just constantly picking my city that has three dudes. And so now I'm going to be down like dudes next round. Or you could just be disrupting like, oh, I got two people in a lake. You're not going to score that. Like there's
Yeah,
plenty of
yeah,
times in which that's a huge impact just killing one
Right.
dude.
I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, I think that tech is certainly really good as is, and I think it would still be worth purchasing and using if it didn't have the VP loss. Because as you said, a lot of the time, just stripping a guy in
Right.
like a scoring area, like in a lake especially, might mean you're like swinging 3 VP, and so like you don't need to also make them lose a VP and make it a 4 VP swing. Like that's a crazy amount. Um, yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, Figure of Doom was turned out to be incredibly impactful in that particular game, but yeah, I mean, I think it's like this is the thing though that I like the system of this game a lot. And so it might be worth if you like this game, like the core of the game, to really sort of like begin house ruling text or,
Yeah.
that just take a Sharpie, just cross out the VP loss on this thing, you know?
I want to add to this idea as well of like curating the game a little bit. I also think it's really important what map setup you go with here. I think you could really, really get that wrong. Um, let's say you used a random map generator, and just as a more extreme example, there weren't like a good distribution of city, village tiles for people to go on. You're not going to have fun in this game if if you don't have any villages you can take early and other people do. Like that is plain to me. I think that you really do need a relatively symmetrical map, and and even within that, I think some careful planning of like how close do we want people to be, you know, um, how many, you know, IP generating tiles ought there to be, this sort of thing, right?
I will say I think if somebody told me that they developed a random map generator for this game, I don't know if one exists, but I would think to say like, okay, you like that's insane. Like you better have like a very good algorithm for
Right.
how this is supposed to like spit something out. Because I think there's a good amount of maps in the like the rule book that they tell you to build. And I think that that's absolutely important. I don't think the systems in this game are resilient enough to survive generating a random map.
Right.
Like I don't think that
The tiles do very different things,
yeah,
and you need a little bit of all of them in every
right.
single slice, I think.
I
So
don't think that you could get away with like doing a randomly generated map for this unless it has like a very like it's like a fractal like it just generates like what one person's stuff should look like and then like
you
put like
mirror
gives
it.
everybody that and just
Oh
like
yeah, I
mirrors
guess
it.
yeah. It just generates a slice, and then yeah. That
Right.
that's interesting. That could work. That would probably be the only way to make it work, honestly, easily.
Like, I think you just need to have access to about the same things as everybody else, which is, like, I don't think that you can, like, have, like, somebody who has all of the science and somebody who has all of the sorcery and somebody who has all of the faith. Like, I just think that it would, like, the system would not work. You'd be generating too many IPs in, like, one discipline, like, every round. So, like, everybody would just be pigeonholed into, like, whatever is near
Right.
them, you know?
That would almost be funny though, of like, yeah, I'm going to get all of the religion like science texts or the religion texts that I want. You get all the science texts you want, you know, because
That would make
because of that.
things like observatory even worse though, because it's like I'm the
Yeah.
science guy. I'm just gonna get observatory and just screw you guys
Right.
over.
There's no way to stop them. Yeah, it would be very silly.
Yeah. Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. You do need to curate the text. I do wonder though about playing with only having one tech at each tier of each type. I think you could maybe do two of the bronze ones, or maybe three of the bronze ones, two of the silver ones. I think that could be interesting. I don't know how well that would work or not, but
Hmm.
when curating it, maybe. Um,
Yeah. I do
I
think
think
that
you
t
could also
yeah.
curate the action cards a little bit. Some of them are very strong. All of them are really quite strong. I don't think they've done a bad job of like making one strong and another not strong, but you might look at them. There's some that are maybe a bit more anti-fun than others.
Hmm. That makes
Yeah.
sense. That
Yeah.
said, I
Yeah.
actually prefer in this game, I like that because you have to use a Spy Master tile to draw a new card, that all the cards are strong. Because you're giving
Yeah,
up at minimum like a VP or like a free worker to even get to look at these cards.
right.
So I don't think like making the cards weaker. Like I think the cards are at a good level of power for like what you
I
need to
would agree.
sacrifice to like because it's not just taking R&D, it's also a worker has to be in the court that you have to spend. Like you have to go through some stuff to do it.
Yeah. But with that said, I do think maybe there's some that are anti-fun or a little bit,
Hmm.
playing more into the take that element of this game that
Hmm.
frankly I don't think is the strong suit here. I think that there are other things about this game that make it more interesting. And one of those for me, by the way, is how simple the combat resolution is. I actually quite like that. I mean, there's a little bit of, the first couple of times figuring out with Spec Ops how exactly that works because it's Spec Ops is just a little bit weird.
Tech ops, you
Um,
mean? Or
Attack Ops, yeah. But past that, the combat resolution system is so simple that I feel like, um, when you're writing these hidden orders, this game could get really, really drawn out if the combat system were any more complicated than this, in my opinion. And so I appreciate that about it. And it's quick resolution, really. You look at it, you go, oh, okay, well, I have one guy left. Yours are all gone. Boom. And it's true. There's other games that it's going to be fun to roll some dice. This game doesn't shy away from like we're going to have a quick resolution system, and that's not the main focus here. And I really do like that about it.
Yeah. It's almost like the main resolution system is almost like abstract game adjacent. I think I talked a little
Yeah.
bit about this before. It's like it's it feels pretty good. It feels pretty elegant. I'm just not sure about some of the stuff on the like periphery of some of the elements that have been added to that core resolution system. And I didn't even know this was something that was similar to a different game. I didn't know about diplomacy.
that's like
Which
the OG Hidden Order game. What do you mean?
I haven't played it.
Okay. Well,
Is diplomacy similar in its combat resolution?
it's just bigger number win. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Diplomacy is different though because it's all about diplomacy. Different units can be supporting your units if you make agreements with people and sort of a
Okay.
so they can bring the artillery and support you in your invasion if they write that kind of order and you know so
What
that
what
could
do you
be
guys think of the Leviathan and the other two units that you can buy instead of Tex?
uh
The Nuka-Tile Leviathan, the roaming tank, and the
Or Tech?
Guardian no fun zone.
the
Hmm.
DMZ Guardian. I think I'd
Yeah,
rather remove those things from the game and have the tech market be two tiles for each spot instead.
Right. I
I,
agree.
that's kind of where I'm at because it's like I get their existence in the game is like, okay, well, what if somebody bought the thing you want to get and you got all this IP lying around? Well, I'll get one of these guys. I don't think you're ever really looking. I mean, not that they're weak. It's just it's not really like I don't think they're as fun as the techs are. Um, I feel like I'd rather just have more tech in the market, honestly.
Here's my problem with them is that I think that the roaming tank in particular is probably too strong to be allowed to be purchased in age one, right? You
Oh,
have this
that's interesting.
natural
Yeah.
limitation on the techs where they have to be purchased in a certain age and they've scaled them differently based on that. I think that if you just like all in and like I'm going to get the roaming tank, it might be a little bit dumb. And I'm sure maybe they could figure it out and I could be totally wrong. This is not something that happened in our game, but that is my intuition on it.
I think you'd have to go te I think the only people who could maybe do that is the tech monkeys. Like
Maybe
the
only
the
the tech monkeys.
troglodytes. I don't know if anyone else could get that quick to it in age one. Like you'd really have to go like super hard.
Right.
It's so funny that like you're calling them tech monkeys like almost as a pejorative, but then the actual term is troglodytes, which is like
Right.
actually sounds like a pejorative.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like, oh,
actually more
excuse me, the
polite.
troglodytes.
That's a more polite way
Yeah,
of
I
calling
know. It's
them.
like,
Yeah.
oh, excuse me, I didn't mean to call you the tech monkeys, troglodytes,
Right.
sir.
Mr. Troglodyte. What's
Oh my
the
God.
what's the what's the deal as well with the lore of this where like you've got the fucking like master race people that apparently don't like the other factions, but then you look at all the other factions and it's like are these meant to be like part humans? Like that to me was the implication and I brought that up during our game, but it seems like all of the non-robot non what is the master race faction?
Pure
Oh,
breeds.
here's
Yeah,
the lore. Are you guys ready for the lore
All right.
bomb?
yeah.
Hit us with the lore bomb.
Centuries ago, human scientists created the hybrid races through a combination of genetic engineering and arcane wizardry. Outraged by this act of hubris, many civilians flocked to the priests who pronounced all hybrids an affront to God. So basically,
Like
it
so it's
was
like
like
modern day furries versus like me.
it would be like if like under like black market alchemists created real life furries and then people turned to God because the furries were like so off-putting to them.
Right.
That's the purebloods faction. It does beg the question, like what about the humans that like aren't part of this faction? Like are there humans that don't think furries are an affront to God?
I guess they become furries through sorcery and
do they
science.
become furries themselves? Yeah, I guess there are some questions that are begged by this. Like
You
maybe
know,
there's
that's where those are all the investment bankers and the like. They're hanging out doing the holding up the economy.
Yeah, that's fair. There is something we haven't really talked about, which I do think is worth talking about because I think it's a system that has shown up a lot lately, including in the game that starts with an A that shall not be named. But the court in this game is an alternative place you can send your recruitment and their later deployment as a way to sort of politically kind of bid on the benefits of the depending on the court you have. And there are different courts that you can have in the game. Each of them has their own benefits. With our most recent play was with espionage cards. In the past, we've used the one that's like more research currency, more IPs. There's another one that gives you more workers and that kind of thing. And it's also worth endgame VP if you still have it at the very end of the game. And I really like in this game the system of there being like a bidding war over that, combining the fact that you have to spend one to use a card. And this actually feels like a better system than Arcs. Sorry, shit, I said it. No! Um, because it's like there's not any danger of the court being ransacked, the literal court, and you losing those guys, but you can choose to spend them. So like you feel comfortable deploying to the court, especially if you're going to be using a card in the near future,
Right.
knowing that there isn't going to be like a meaningful disruption there, I guess I should say.
And I think you're also likely to find ways throughout the game to move guys out of the court. There's
Yes.
a number of cards that interact with it. I I agree. I think it is better than Ark's court, which has its own host of problems. I do still think that the court in this game, most of what I find interesting about it is that well, I have to decide to put a guy here and then use a guy in order to pay for an action card. That to me is an interesting cost for the action cards. I think that the, you know, actual like I would rather just have guys on the board most of the time. I think that's generally more interesting.
Hmm.
Um, Especially when it comes down to, being in the court is going to be a VP swing and not, you know, helping you win in other ways and in cool ways. Um, to me, it all pales in comparison to the Castillo, you know? It's just
True,
True.
bad
true,
Castillo,
true. Okay, yeah. No, I'm not saying this is like, I'm not saying that like this is a mechanic that's like really is pulling me into the game.
Right,
It's just I don't mind it. Whereas I do
right,
mind similar systems in other games where I feel like it feels more tacked on in this game. At
right.
least in this game, it's integrated to some extent, and I don't feel like it
I
doesn't feel rough to me. It's like it's debatable whether it's necessary to even be in the game at all, but in its current position, I don't mind it, I guess.
It at least has multiple purposes. Yeah, like at
Yeah,
least you have the tie-in with the espionage cards, which I
right.
like. And
And
then
you
it
can
like
you can
also
get
is
to
like
a
a
point when you're
drag.
writing your orders where you go, and I've got one more guy. I'll put him in the court, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and that never feels too bad, which I appreciate.
I think another thing is that it's not as good as the Castillo, as you said, but it does have something similar to the Castillo, which is that you do have the simultaneous reveal of orders. And so there is the kind of like, well, I'm gonna make a play for the court this turn. Will three be enough?
Right,
And you don't know, like maybe somebody bid four, maybe nobody else bid anything. Like you don't
right.
you just don't know. So there is a kind of there's a funny reveal thing if you are pushing for the court benefits. Um, I think I was worried somebody was going to take the early age bonus from me, and I committed like an extra guy or two, and then like nobody else even cared. Like it was just nobody else that had gone there at all.
Yeah, I had a similar thing. I was worried like somebody was gonna take it, and I put like five guys in there or something, and it was fine, like for the second age benefit. And then I think similarly, Blake just like put like had an action card that let him put like 10 of his guys from the
Yeah,
board
I
into
could I could
there.
put any number from the board in, and I just thought it would be funny to do as many as possible. And in doing so, like made a huge misplay because I was no longer like locking down one of Ben's units or something. Um,
It's
Although Ben
definitely
had
yeah.
counterplay if I did leave a guy anyways, but nonetheless.
I think there probably was a better way to sequence that turn, but at the same time, it was really funny when that
Yeah, to
happened.
like
So
I haven't had a guy in the court like basically all game, and then I was like, and now I've got 11.
yeah, it's like Ben and I were having like a spy battle. Like people were like kind of shooting tranquilizer darts at each other in
Mhm.
the hallway, and like Blake just showed up with like the army itself, just
Right.
kicked down the door, you know?
That reminds me, one thing that is kind of weird about this in like the final round is the fact that you can mostly like abandon tiles. Like you can just leave your cities and leave your IP generation tiles and you just get the hell out of there. I mean, who maybe not as much with the IP generation tiles, but certainly your cities you just don't need on the last round. Unless there's, like keep a guy in there to prevent, I don't know. I don't even think it matters. I think you could just leave them.
I was
Well,
the For me it was the only person who mattered. Like
Right. You had a tech that made cities score, but
yeah.
now
yeah.
I will say that the first tiebreak is whoever controls the most territories on the board.
Ah, okay. That's good to
Okay.
know.
So it wasn't relevant this time, but if it were relevant, then that it would be relevant.
Right. Right. Yeah,
So
fair
yeah,
enough.
hmm, interesting.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, there's
second
there's a little bit of
tiebreaker
that though.
is the second tiebreaker is actually turn order.
Turn
Okay.
order.
That's
Yeah,
fun.
it
I don't think I've
is.
ever seen that as a
I was gonna say that's a
tie
little bit
break.
weird. I would think it
Well,
Uh,
would maybe
it's a
I don't know.
tiebreak in T. It's not a tiebreak in TI. It's how you win the game in TI. But like in TI, you can choose what the turn order is, right?
right, yeah, there's some more control. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you make a play for it. Oh, I think I'm gonna win next turn, so I'm gonna take uh Not is it? It's what's the level three
Leadership.
one?
Or-
No, not
Oh,
leadership.
politics.
Yeah,
Politics.
politics. I'm gonna take politics because next turn I think I can, win. Then I want to be first. Yeah. That is a bit weird. I also want to say with this game, I find it hard to imagine wanting to play the long game of 3 rounds per age instead of the short game, which is 2 rounds per age one, age two, and then 3 rounds in age three. I feel like the short game is plenty, you know?
The first few rounds will go quick, and the last few rounds will be longer. And I think there's a nice kind of arc to the game that way, where the early turns are really fast, and then you kind of expand into each other, and then the deployment's going to get more complicated as you try to guess what your opponents are going to be doing and outsmart them and accidentally outsmart yourself. And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, I will say the action cards fuzzy that a little bit. I was trying to predict that in the last round that Blake would maybe like try and break into my cities and then like I could hit him as he force marched some dudes and win a bunch of combats and try to like score some VP. And then he did this completely different thing with the court that was like it was an interesting surprise. It was just all it was kind of like, oh, okay. Like I
Yeah.
should have just
What the
attacked
hell
him
was
in
that?
places that mattered. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, there's a little bit of that in this game throughout of like, oh God, what the hell happened? How was I meant to predict? You know? And
Yeah.
some of it is the hidden orders, some of it is certainly the action cards, as you've mentioned, Ben. There's a
that the
good
action
deal of
card
that.
deck isn't very big. It's worth mentioning. So I think if you played
You
this
get
game,
some
I
familiarity.
think it's only like the action card deck is only I can look at it right now actually. It is only 15 cards in the deck.
Hmm. Okay.
So
15. Really?
fif-
Wow.
I think so. And I think the expansion added some more maybe.
Ah,
So
okay.
but not a big deck is the point. Like it's not a TI action card deck. You can definitely if you played this game as your regular board game meetup game, enough times, I think you have an idea of, what's in the deck at that point.
Right.
Maybe, not that you'd be necessarily playing around some of the more wacky ones all the time, because it would be kind of silly to, but at least you'd kind of have an idea of what they might have drawn off R&D.
Yeah. You can know what's been played and what you don't have to worry about, I guess, or what you have,
Mhm.
you know.
Hmm.
Well, I think I've talked about everything that I'm ha want to talk about
Yeah,
this one. I'm happy to go to scoring if you guys are, unless there's anything else.
no, me too.
We talked about the uh the mega units that you buy, right? Yeah, we
We
Yeah,
did.
did, yeah.
the
Yeah, I
generals.
think I'm ready as well. Oh, the spider.
Do we have to talk about the spider? Well,
The
we house
spider shouldn't kill himself. That's all
yes,
I gotta say.
I think the
we
spider,
house ruled that. Yeah,
I think the spider, I think the thing that we had the problem with the spider was not that I don't think it kills itself. I think the rhinos kill themselves. The
the rhinos do.
spider, I believe, has an extra cost on top of other units for
Oh, is
other
that
special
right?
units. I believe you have to spend like some kind of IPs or like science IPs, maybe even in particular, to get your like special unit on the board.
Gotcha.
I seem to remember that being the problem that was with the spider, where it was like, why does this one cost something when all of the
Uh,
other,
Here's what it is. If the arachnoid is killed, you can rebuild it during any discovery stage by spending 4 IPs, and then it can be back into your deployment pool. I think like
yeah,
4 IPs is a lot.
that's a lot. That's
Right.
like a victory point and maybe like uh, a research, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And maybe it would be more than a victory point if you spent that research on, a tech that's going to really,
And
help you out.
I don't remember it doing anything particularly more good than the other special units to warrant such a weird like balance thing that feels kind of tacked on and like completely different than the other
Have
ones.
have we understood that right though? Like that is a requirement in order to get it back on, or is that an additional way that you can get it back on in a different phase of the game?
No, that is if it's killed, that is the only way you can get it back, I
It's the only way.
believe.
Yeah. Weird. We didn't really need to mention it, you're right, but I thought of it and I was like, I remember being kind of sour about that. Not on the last play, but the play before of like, I played the spiders and they're bullshit, you know?
And it's like it is the one bit of asymmetry in the factions, though. So it is kind of
Yeah, that's your
important.
whole
Like
thing
that's
is,
your thing, right? Is the spider. Like,
but yes, otherwise, yes, I am ready. I am ready to talk about some scores here.
yeah.
Well, I went first last time, so it's up to you guys this time.
Would you
Go
like
ahead,
to begin or
Blake.
shall I?
You go.
All right. Clockwork Wars. I'm going to give Clockwork Wars a 6.5. I do think it has some fun stuff going on. But the 6.5 really is assuming that you're curating your text, assuming that you are, changing the spider, assuming that you're using a good map. There's some assumptions in here, right? Assuming that people have enough villages by their place and maybe are defendable villages, this sort of thing. Um, Out of the box, no house rules, just letting it fly. I'm giving this thing like a 4.5. I really think it's that much of a difference. But if you take the time to really work out some of those kinks, I do think it's worth playing. I do think there's a lot of fascinating stuff here. I do think the game has a good flow. The combat resolution is fast. The early turns fly by. I think you can get this game to be played in somewhere between 2 and 2.5 hours or so, which is pretty quick for this type of game. And for those reasons, I'm like, okay, give it a 6.5, let it ride. That's a pretty good score, worth playing.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and give my rating. I think I'm giving this like a 5.9. In context of the like other games that I've rated recently, I think I'd rather play Clash of Cultures a little bit more than I would like to play Clockwork Wars again. I think in my mind, Clockwork Wars is very much a diamond in the rough. I think that uh like I think it needed to be refined a little bit more. I think this one could have used a couple more loops in the like,
Play
you know,
testing.
yeah, in the play testing, just in the development process. I think it could have just used a couple more go arounds to really like you know, cut some of these edges off. But the game as is, I think, has like a decent amount of problems, but has a very interesting and unique core mechanic that aside from apparently diplomacy, I haven't seen in any other game. This is personally my first introduction to this mechanic, and it's interesting. It's a cool mechanic. I like it. Um, I just I just think that a lot of the stuff around it is a little bit blemishing. I think it could have used some fat being trimmed down. Just trim some of it.
Yeah, respectable.
Respectable, respectable.
Yeah, I think I'm here to 6.5 with you guys. I think that sounds about right. I think Clash of Cultures above this. I'd certainly rather play this game than Rune Wars, for sure.
Yeah.
I think this game is definitely in the category of the type of game that it occupies this unique niche in the genre, which is this kind of more complicated diplomacy, but still with that same core. I'm not sure there's another game exactly like this one. For that reason, I will not be selling it or getting rid of it because I think especially with house rules, with a lot of house rules or a new edition of the game or whatever it is, you can probably make this game really shine. It's, as Ben said, it's a diamond in the rough. I think it has big balance issues and some weird take that kind of overly take that type design. But I do think that there's a lot of the design that's good. And fortunately, in this particular design, it's a little bit easier to house rule, I think, because the core is all good. It's really
Hmm.
kind of the extraneous stuff even that kind of makes it falter. And that's easier to house rule. Um, it's much harder when you have to like fix fundamental problems in combat or deployment, which this game doesn't have those problems. That's the best part of the game already. Like we don't need to change that. Um, I know I feel like I've been maybe I've become more optimistic lately, but I'm always trying to think about like, well, how good would this game be if it was play tested more? And this is
Right.
definitely a game in that category where this really could have been or could be in the future a really, really good game. And hopefully it gets a chance someday. But until then, it's a 6.5.
I
And
I've got to just say me personally, it sounds so am I understanding correctly, both of you are saying you'd rather play Clash of Cultures generally than Clockwork Wars.
certainly I would, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm in that same boat. I think I'd rather play Clash of Cultures than this.
I would rather do Clockwork Wars than Clash of Cultures.
Okay.
And I'm quite sure of that. Um, but I just thought it was interesting. I want to point that out, like they are very different games. And for me, the movement in Clash of Cultures and the ability to get around so fast makes it a little bit too unparsable compared to like Clockwork Wars. I kind of know what's going on in this game, assuming that there has been some curation of like the nonsense stuff, you know.
I should
Yep.
also mention that after perusing the rule book, I somehow missed this, but once killed, unique units are permanently removed from the game.
What?
It's in a section that's not where, okay, so I guess we should bring up just the very end. The rule book is not great. There's no
The unique
index.
units are permanently dead
So that means the spider's ability to rebuild it
is a
is like
plus,
is normally you can't.
right?
So I don't think
Man.
it doesn't change my rating at all. And in fact, it may I don't really like that.
I don't love that either. Yeah,
No, I don't
Because
love it either.
I kind of think like being able to redeploy is like it's like you can just permanently lose your faction asymmetry.
right.
Right? Yeah.
Like
I could see like, oh, the turn after they die, you can't redeploy. You have to wait one more turn after that or something like that. But even that, I mean, I don't know. Who
that's
cares?
kind of where I'm at in this game in general, is it's kind of like, yeah, this is cool. Wait a second. Why mess it up?
Right. Why take away my fun?
I think huh, that's interesting. Yeah, we've been playing we've been playing that particular. I think we've been playing the game 99% correctly, but that's one rule that we have passed over, my mistake. Um, but I think I'd rather house rule that you can get them back, so maybe it's not a mistake. So,
Right.
because it's like again, you just like lose your faction's ability to do like the cool thing
You know
forever.
what's weird about that? This is sort of an exception proves the rule type of thing. Some of the factions have in the description for like what their unique unit does text that says you must permanently remove them. Like I think that's the case with the rhinoceroses or whichever the one is that has
It is,
Yeah,
yeah.
the
it's the
bombers.
rhinos. Yep.
Yeah, where it's like it says that they get permanently removed. And it's like you don't need that text if that's the default for
I
unique
think
units, and
that's
thus
why
it's misleading and confusing.
Yeah, I think that's why I was confused because it's like, oh, these factions are one-time use because they're really powerful. Now I'm wondering why the other, like the units that aren't as powerful can still die. Like, doesn't that make the pure braids worse? Because it's like if you send your guy out to do
Oh, much
like
worse.
to go like, do something and you mess up, like he's just gone forever.
I feel like he's
Yeah.
gone forever 90% of the time anyway, because he's going to be swinging his ding dong out there really far. You know, you're probably like throwing him way into the back line because he doesn't suffer attrition and can like appear anywhere.
Yeah,
So like he's not going to have like backup. You're
But
not
he
he
can get out. It's just like he's going to
Oh, okay.
die if you put him somewhere where there's not only one dude after all of the movement happens.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
he's just gone forever. Like you can't ever bring him back,
Right.
which seems weird to me.
So
It does.
he only gets to really strangle people until you fuck up, you know?
Well,
Yeah,
it
if you make one bad guess, he's just gone.
Yeah,
that seems just kind of overly punishing, right? Because it's a hidden deployment game. Like
I would say so.
it's easy to just arbitrarily make a mistake. Like they might have just, I'll just move a guy here in the deployment and then,
Yeah, like
for
with
no particular reason. And
no reasoning.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that happened. Like,
it did happen. I think it was on T4 even.
yeah.
I
He
remember
the dial T4 Hots will.
T4. I remember T4. But yeah, that seems weird. Well, anyway, it's a game that like yeah, it's not like I think Rune Wars felt painful to me to come back to. This game doesn't really feel painful for me to play. Like if somebody's got this isn't like we talked about this in a previous episode, but there are games where it's like you're breaking that out, I'm leaving the board game meetup. This isn't
Right.
this isn't that kind of game at all. If somebody's breaking out Clockwork Wars, let's play. Like it's not a big deal.
Well, it
However,
does
in
depend on the people.
That's true.
yeah,
But I think you just need to speak up and be like, hey, just so you guys know, maybe we should talk about the text before we play.
Right.
You know,
I do hate to do it, but in light of that recent development, I do have to like put it down to a 6.7, I think. I
you
think
We
that
mean
were
has
at a
to
you mean a
5.9 a minute
or wait, a
ago.
wait,
five
put it
point
down.
a 5.7. A 5.7.
Like actually, the rating's
Actually, I love
exploding.
that.
Actually, I love that and want that in every game. Make me lose my asymmetry randomly, please.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I gave the non like out of the box no house rule score of 4.5. That can drop to a 4. How about? I'm
Dang.
willing to do that.
Without any house rules. Okay. Or
With
like
no
any
house
curation.
rules.
Or
Yeah,
cur
no
or
Yeah.
curation.
curation. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah, if you're just playing it raw as the developers intended.
But I guess that's a reason why I feel like Clash feels like a little higher for me because Clash is, I mean, I do like Clash more than either of you guys, I think, based on our ratings, but I think Clash is like it is a more polished game than
Yeah,
this.
I would
Like
agree with that.
there are problems with it, but they are problems that aren't like there aren't problems like arbitrarily losing your asymmetry permanently.
Right.
And in fact, that idea is in the game via like leaders who can be captured for VP and then you don't have them anymore. But that's like a game mechanic, not like an arbitrary.
Yeah.
It would be like if you could if you used your leader in Clash of Cultures to explore a tile, he could step on a bear trap and just die,
Right.
and then you
And then
lose
it
him
would
for
just
that.
be like, okay, he's
And
done. Yeah.
okay, you know,
You can't parade your elephants about anymore.
yeah, I don't know. It does
I,
seem
I'm thinking about there's a chance out of the box that you do get the right text. So maybe 4 is too harsh. Maybe it's between a 4 and like a 5.5 or a 6, and it's just a variable score depending on if you get lucky or not with your tech selection.
oh yeah.
You know what I mean? But sort of
Yeah.
besides the point. Yeah, I get what you mean. I agree with you that Clash of Cultures out of the box, more polished game. To me, the hidden order thing here, or not hidden order, would you call it that?
Hidden deployment,
Hidden
I'd say.
deployment. Yeah. I like yeah. Um to me that's enough more interesting as a core mechanic that I'm like I would rather do some Clockwork Wars out of those two. I'd probably rather play something else, but out of those two.
Yeah, I mean, it's an arbitrary thought experiment because I think we're probably playing other games if we're not specifically replaying these things to like talk about them on the podcast. Like
Yeah. Could
if
be
we're
fun
just
to
Yeah.
go for every once in a while. It's fun to revisit things.
yeah, yeah. Well, unless there's anything else, think I've said my
No,
piece. You
no
boys?
more last minute revelations from me. So
I'm good.
All right. Well, I'm hoping to acquire a copy of Burning Banners, so we can talk about that. But man, it's selling out everywhere. I looked at Board Game Oracle and it's like it's selling out.
Burning
I might
banners.
have to try and pick it up used somewhere and not pay $120 for it because that's more than I'm willing to pay for a
I don't
game that's at
remember hearing of this one.
this is a game that I would it's like a fantasy war game. I'd say it's in the same category broadly as Bloodstones, but instead of dominoes, you've got like Space 4X style little chits.
Oh. Oh yeah, this looks fascinating. Wow.
Yeah,
What a
it's
cool
got
looking map.
yeah, there's some people that have been talking it up. I actually somebody commented, extremely rare for us to get comments. Please comment more if you can, just so that we know that we're being listened to at all. But somebody commented on the Spotify podcast asking us if we'd played Burning Banners, and so there's demand for it from at least one person.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
mean, if you have a suggestion for a game for us to play, please give us the
We've
suggestions.
already
We
done arcs.
yeah, I
We
was
don't
gonna
like
say
it.
Actually, funny story. I put ARX up on Facebook Marketplace. I was selling it last week. I was immediately assaulted by more messages than, you know, I can't even think of something than, than an attractive woman on a dating service. I don't know. It was like I felt popular.
I can relate to that. I've been an attractive woman on a dating service before.
but it was more than I'd ever seen on like a board game listing. Like I'm seriously within 30 minutes of listing arcs and leaders in lore, I had received like 20 messages. And I just went from the top. I was like, all right, well, you're first. And of those 20 messages, five of them were like, hey, I'll give you like $20 for it. And then one of them was actually like a mom, based on the profile picture. Like I'd do a deep dive on it, just looked like she was holding her baby or something. She was like, "Hey, if I give you 10 for arcs, is that okay?" And like I had to go through and
What is
individually
going
respond to
on?
everybody and be like, "Hey, like actually there are like 15 people in front of you who are all willing to pay like the listed price, so I'm sorry." Like
Did you see I posted on
I did. Oh man. Yeah, Blake posted on my posting of selling arcs that he was like, is if no wait, what was it? If Rune Wars is such a
I said I might be interested in Rune Wars. Question, did the box ever touch the Arcs box or were they always stored separately? And then some guy says, I've got to know what this is about. And I told him, believe you me, I have my reasons.
yeah, that was I think I gave you a thumbs up or something. Anyway, yeah, really funny. But yeah, arcs got sold like instantaneously. That was pretty crazy. So I talked to the guy when I sell it and I say, just letting you know this game is a little bit divisive, but I hope you enjoy it. And he's like, "Oh no, don't worry. Root is my favorite game, and trick taking is my favorite mechanic." And I was like, "You know what? You're probably gonna like this game then.
It
Yeah.
sounds like it's for him, yeah.
It's for you. This is for you. I'm happy it's going to a home that, I hope they get everything that they want out of it."
Right. I mean, everybody has their issues, and being able to like celebrate each other and like live as one on this planet, despite that, is kind of one of the beauties of life, in my opinion, of like we can all be flawed in our own ways, yet come together and still love and respect each other.
Respect might be a bit much, as well as love, actually, but I understand and agree with the message overall.
I mean,
Right.
just because I don't want you at my table doesn't mean I don't want you to eat,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's a
Right.
little
Right.
closer to where I'm at.
Okay. Right. 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 Right.
All right, well, with that beautiful finishing thought, I think it's time to close this chapter of the podcast.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching and or listening. See you guys in the next one.
See ya.